Hoetsu. Can you all hear me online? So it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Melanie Hoetsu Jessen. She is used to be my primary care physician for many years, so I know her quite well. And she would still be my primary care physician, except she's retired or semi-retired. I'm not sure because she keeps working. So, Melanie is a longtime member of our Zen Center. She studies with me as a Zen student. She received Jukai a couple of years ago, and her Dharma name is Hoetsu, which means Dharma joy, which should tell you all you need to know about her. She has a very long list of accomplishments, which I don't have in front of me, so I'm not going to attempt to read those. But this is her first Dharma talk, so she's got it all written down, you know. And Melanie was, in a former life, she was a dancer. That was her primary vocation, artist, dancer. And she, out of her practice as an artist, she was inspired to go back to medical school and study to become a doctor. And when she told me that story, I said, we got to hear that story. I want to know more about that story because there's something rich there. How you go from being an artist to the science of medicine would be very interesting. So I give you Hoetsu.
Okay, I use my reading glasses.
I'm going to speak up a little bit.
Okay, I do have a soft voice, so if you guys can't hear me online, let me know. So hi, everyone. Hello. So my talk today is on the Bodhisattva skill set. Well, what Roshi said is first what I want to do is tell you about my meditation or my Bodhisattva path, how I got here. And that's a really good segue or lead-in to talk about Bodhisattva skill set. And then after that, if we have time, which I know we have time because I have a short talk, we'll talk, I would like us to reflect on what are our skill sets as Bodhisattvas, as individuals, but also as a Sangha. So Roshi asked me to share this story a while ago. So during college, I was studying music and dance. I took a yoga class and began a regular meditation practice and during college. And so I meditated every morning. And so during college, I think I was a pretty good at accomplishing. And I remember the teacher saying to me, just meditate every day for 6 months. Don't decide whether you like it or don't like it. Just do it for 6 months before you make a decision. And so that's what I did. And so after about 6 months, what I noticed was that my mind was clearer, it was sharper. I was really present in my classrooms. Like I could listen to the teacher once and then look at my notes and like I knew, you know, so my grades got really good. And the studying just became more efficient. So I learned the benefits of meditation for myself at that point. So then after college, I was teaching piano, I was dancing, and I started becoming interested in my students' mental health and their physical well-being. So then one morning I was sitting meditating, and I had this mind shift. It shifted from thinking about, you know, what did I want to do, to how can I help others? And to this day, I can remember that meditation. It was so vivid. It was just like it was yesterday that it happened. So, I remember the room, I remember what was in the room, I remember where I was sitting, I remember the sun kind of coming down. Like it was total stillness. And I think, you know, what happened that day was that I think my bodhicitta opened up that day. And so I felt like the Grinch riding down the sleigh, that my heart opened up 10 times that day. But my perspective and my clarity totally changed of how I saw the world. And it was just so powerful and so clear. So this experience really freaked me out, I would say. And I didn't want to talk about it, but I knew I had to change the direction of my life course at that time. My family was really very perplexed. Like, they didn't know what happened to me. They were like, my mother was like, I don't like hospitals. I don't work in a hospital. So they were really confused. So I shared my story with Roshi, and I met him as he was my patient. And when I walked in the room, I felt like I was with an old dear friend, but I was in the room. And so I knew I kind of had to come here and study with him. And I'm also very, very protective of him. Like, I am like a mama bear protective of him. Like, nobody messes with him. So when I shared this story with him, he was like, yeah, that happens. But he made me feel like he's heard the story before. And that I didn't lose my mind that day. I found my mind. And I found my path. So I immediately signed up for science courses to take to study music and dance therapy. And the hope was to get this like larger skill set to help out my fellow human being. And it was weird, I almost felt possessed by the drive and my sense of urgency to get this training. And then my biology teacher said, why don't you consider medical school? Because it will give you a broader skill set. So he said the right words to me, and I was like, okay, all right, maybe I'll do that. So when I interviewed for medical school, they asked me, why did you switch from being a musician and a dancer to a physician? And I said, well, I told them I wanted to help people. And then they would look at me and go, well, what specifically happened? And it came to me in a meditation. And I knew I couldn't tell them that. Because this was back in the 80s, and women were just kind of starting to get into the medical field. And they were typically taking people who had just graduated with science degrees. And here I was an older individual with an art degree. And and they would introduce themselves and go, well, you're an atypical applicant, or I could just tell they thought I was kind of an oddity, so I didn't want to say anything that would be like too far out there for them to. So I didn't say anything. So finally I figured out to tell them about the career wheel. And I don't know if any of you guys have kids, there's this career wheel that people get when they're looking to see what they want to do for their career. And it, goes over the arts and the sciences and tech. And on this wheel, music is the most scientific of the arts, and medicine is the most artistic of the sciences. So they're actually very close together in their thought process. So I told them about that. And so I got into a couple of medical schools. I went to medical school. And it gave me a wonderful skill set to help people. And I'm forever grateful for the privilege and opportunity that I've had to take care of patients and kind of continue to take care of patients. So that's my story. So I want to talk about what are our Bodhisattva skill sets? And what skill sets do we possess to take action to help our fellow sentient human beings, to help humanity, to help our environment, and to do it with a benevolent and selfless intent that's not driven by the ego or feeds the ego. So I think as a Zen practitioner, we have an abundance of it. We have a lot. So the first thing I look at is our Zen Peacekeeper's 3 tenets of not knowing, bearing witness, and taking action. So not knowing and bearing witness to another person's suffering, listening to them with your full attention, being present, offering a safe and non-judgmental, time and space is it's just a huge, wonderful skill set for us to have. People want to be listened to, they want to be heard, they want to be acknowledged, validated. And listening and hearing, bearing witness to them with compassion is a wonderful skill set to decrease the suffering of our fellow human beings. A lot of times in the exam room, or especially in the hospital room, that is simply all I did. I just listened to people, I bared witness with compassion, and that was all that was needed at that time to help them out. People in the hospital they're really overwhelmed, they're very stressed out, they're worried about their future, and just listening to them can decrease their suffering, and it's huge. I talked to Chris last night, Chris DeSalle, and she was saying how she did a talk 1 or 2 years ago, and she was saying that in her job, which I'm not sure what she did, human resources, that she said just listening was a huge skill set that she applied to her job, because that's what people want, you to listen to them, and they want to be heard. So, that it's really important. So, when we take action, we should also have right action, which is described in our Eightfold Path. So Thich Nhat Hanh, this is what he has on his writing on the Eightfold Path. I love his writings. This is what he writes about right action. Right action is based on right view, right thinking, and right speech, and is linked to right livelihood. It is the practice of touching love, preventing harm, the practice of nonviolence towards ourselves and others. There are so many things we can do to practice right action. We can protect life, practice generosity, behave responsibly, and consume mindfully. The basis of right action is right mindfulness, and to do everything in mindfulness. So this is from his Heart of the Buddha teaching book that he wrote. So when taking action, you also have to consider the right time and the right place. So for example, say you love cooking, right? I'm thinking of the family that we're going to help out. So one of your friends, so you love to cook, you love to provide food for people, and one of your friends' family members passes away, and everybody's bringing food to their house, right? So then when you arrive with your food, they already have enough food that they know what to do with, right? So that's an example of wrong time. You've done your loving action, but it's just the wrong time. So then you have to think back of well, what would I do then? You could freeze your meal for them, perhaps. You could bring some of the excess food to a shelter, just because, again, just all the food is overwhelming them also, so anything that you can do to help them out at that time is a good thing. That's an example of wrong time. The majority of our skill sets that we have to help people don't require any special training. They just require some mindfulness. Some skills require a lot of training. And sometimes if you have special skill sets, you may limit yourself or tunnel vision yourself to that one skill set, when maybe another common skill set would come in, it would be better to do. So I think of the movie Airplane as a doctor, because I love that movie. And people on the plane are getting food poisoning from the food on the plane, right? And so they ask, is there a doctor on the plane? And there is a doctor, it's played by Leslie Nielsen, who's hilarious. And he's a gynecologist, right? So he proceeds to do gynecological exams on the passengers, which is a totally useless thing to do in this situation. But that's his skill set, and that's what he knows how to do, so he's going to do it. So, that's an example of when not to use your skill set. So, it is a short talk. So I want to end with saying that when you utilize your skill set by taking loving action without ego, that is when true inner joy will arise within you. This joy isn't loud, it's not external, it's peaceful, it's quiet, it's beautiful, and it's bliss. So thank you. So then what I wanted to do is open it up and maybe perhaps go around and just talk about, like, what are your skill sets? Because sometimes it's just good to identify what they are. So what do you think your skill set is as an individual? Or as a sangha, what is our skill set? Or is there a skill set that you'd like to develop? You know, so to give us time to talk about that.
I don't have a skill set. I'll think about the skill set, but just while it's fresh in my memory, when you write your autobiography,
Yeah.
the title could be The Atypical Applicant.
I'm going to defer on skills for a minute, but your story reminded me of the story Robin Wall Kimmerer tells. She's an excellent biologist, ecologist, and writer. Many of you have read her writings. When she first went to college, it was in some, like a forestry department in New York or something, you know, some college. And he said, so why do you want to go to school? And she said, I want to know why the asters and goldenrod are so beautiful in the fields in the autumn. And she almost didn't get into school.
You'll have to give me that name. Yeah. So any skill sets that people?
Thank you. This was great. I've been thinking a lot about this because last fall I lost my office, my landlord moved and all, and it really changed everything I'm doing. And so I decided to really try to think about my skill set, what's easy, what's fun. And something that people told me over and over is that I have a soft voice and it helps them go to sleep, which I'm a professional speaker, so that's not that good. But you know, just really connecting with the idea of what would it take to, you know, make like little gifts for people, vocal gifts or meditations, or maybe that's saturated, but just something that, like, what's natural, what do you love to do, what are you good at, what have people said you should do? So.
Yeah, because when you love to do it,
Yes.
then it's like a win-win, you know, because you're doing an action skill for someone and you're helping someone out, but you're loving what you do, so that's perfect.
Yeah. I'll pass this to the next person. Okay.
Anyone online, feel free to unmute and join the conversation as well.
I have a question.
Sure, we got a question over here in the Buddha Hall.
I think it might.
Hold on a second,
it might
Adrian.
open up.
Hold on a second.
Okay. So my question is, you know, you talked about how you moved from arts to sciences, and I actually had kind of an odd visionary experience that changed my life at one time, so I understand that totally. But my question is, I've been thinking about people who practice the arts lately a lot, as I get back into my writing practice. And you need a lot of time alone to do painting and to do writing and to create dances. And there's something in this society that says that unless you're, you know, making a lot of money doing this, that what you're doing is kind of selfish, or you could be spending your time especially if you're a woman, you could be spending your more time helping other people. So that's my question. Like, how does practicing the arts intersect with Bodhisattva skills?
Mm-hmm.
Ken? Daigu?
I actually wanted to say something along those lines, because one of the things that I found is that I have found my skill sets as my practice continues to be quite fungible and dependent upon the situation. And in terms of an art, I happen to practice what is known as the lowest form of the arts. It's considered absolutely the lowest form of the arts, which is comedy. But I've spent a lot of time thinking about why I do that, and I've mentioned that in the previous Dharma talk. For me, spending time writing a joke is my way of processing the truth, okay? And when I watch Roshi Jun dance the hula, I feel the same way. And when I put all my raffle tickets to win that turtle from Robert Roshi in the raffle, and I have his artwork around my apartment, I feel the same way. And what it is a way of being okay with myself. I mean, because you can't spend time with yourself if you don't like yourself and you're not comfortable with yourself. And I spent many decades that way. So for me, the sitting starts with everything, and what comes out of it is really more a function of the bearing witness and not relying on, you know, there's an old saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And by opening up and being okay with yourself, that's when you can start to access those places, the interpersonal places in your brain or in your nervous system or whatever. And that's where the beauty of the whole thing kind of lies for me.
Over here in the Buddha Hall, Mikhail. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. And then back to Roshi Jun.
I'm interested in one aspect of your biography. So as an artist and then as a medical doctor, have you ever put these two aspects of your life together? And is there any part in your biography where, as a medical doctor, you still practiced arts? And have you ever encouraged your patients to go into arts as a form of healing?
I have done the last, yeah. I've recommended people, you know, do some sort of hobby or art. Journaling is a real common one to recommend to people. Artwork is really common. Again, like, you know, music therapy also, having people write songs and to talk about their experience and sing about their experience. So yeah, I have done that. What was the first part of your question? I don't think so maybe that's about how I've combined it.
You dance.
Yeah, but I don't dance in the office.
Oh,
You know, I don't fool in the office. So that way I haven't combined it, but I have been told by patients and by other physicians that they think that I have kind of like a broader perspective on things.
Medicine?
Yeah, because I think I kind of look at the humanity of it a little bit more than, you know, just not the straight science of it.
Yeah, I experienced that when you were my doctor. You seemed just more open to different ideas. So I was just going to comment also about art and dance and being alone and focused on art as a kind of form of resistance to the cultural mores about that, because you know, as I've said before, we're swimming in this culture that doesn't value that. But I think it's very important for our personal health and well-being, and that just kind of, you know, with mirror neurons, it spreads. When you're happy and joyful, it really just spreads. And it's not a forced kind of happiness or joy, as you said. It kind of comes from that quiet, kind of quieting down everything and just being without having to make money or anything like that.
And I think also, like during performances, if you think of your performance as healing the people out there, helping the people out there, I think that's very important.
Yeah, you're just being, right?
Yep.
You're just being.
Yeah.
So I was, when you talked about the career mandala or whatever that was, and that music was the most scientific art form,
Yes.
and medicine was the most artful science.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And as an artist myself, I've had to struggle with integrating art with my spiritual path at Zen. And I was working pretty much as an artist when we started our first Zen center in Hawaii in, what was that, 94. And I stopped painting altogether because I couldn't integrate all the alone time I had as an artist and as an introvert with starting a nonprofit and all that was involved. And I just stopped. And for many years, I painted in my dreams. Yeah. And it wasn't until maybe about 15 years ago, Jun Roshi and me were doing a retreat in Wisconsin at someone's house, and it was beautiful. It was on a river, and it was a 7-day retreat, I think, or a 5-day. And we had, during the breaks, I had an iPad at the time, and I went out, and it was beautiful. I started sketching on my iPad. I got so excited, I didn't want to go back in and meditate at all. And so on the way home, as we were driving home, I told June, I'm getting older, and I just don't want to give up the joy that comes from art. I just, I can't, I'm not willing to give it up anymore. So I'm going to figure out a way to do both. gotta, in a way, art kind of saved me from Zen, and Zen saved me from art. I don't know how to say that, but I think we have I don't think there's anything selfish about art. The artists are narcissistic in a kind of unselfish way because they're in service to an expression of something that's truthful for them, and that's really important. Mm-hmm. But we have this tendency to departmentalize everything and reduce things down. There's art here, and there's spiritual here, and there's medicine here. And really, life isn't like that. So I think the more interesting question is how to live artfully. Everyone can live artfully. No one has to be an artist, and no one has to be a Zen Buddhist priest to live a spiritual life of Zen. And I think that's a much more interesting way to approach it than what does it mean to live an artful life? And I'm thinking it probably means to really think carefully about how you are in service to life and service to other people through your Bodhisattva skill sets.
Art and medicine, I just did I was typing on my phone, but I wanted to ask Deb a question to make sure I was right. We had a doctor when we first moved to Oak Park that she found who was just starting a private practice. And in the exam rooms, which are by necessity very clinical, and there are skeletons and charts and everything, but she always had a piece of art hanging on the wall, at least one. Yeah. And somehow it just seemed, okay, well, that's good.
Sam.
Hey, yeah, I think I saw when you said the connection between art and medical. I don't think I saw any kind of immediate sort of separation myself. I work in an art field for a career and have for the last 8 years. But I think a lot about what it means in a lot of ways to be a bodhisattva, in the sense that karma and the way that we interact with the world. I think Buddhism in a lot of ways is our relationship to things, and to create something is to affirm something in reality. It's to change things around you, and to sort of harmoniously sort of engage with your relationships to things. and to fix things or to heal things is the same. So to be a doctor and to go into the world and to find something that should be made right or to heal or to fix is to affirm the reality that you feel is right. And to me, that is the Bodhisattva way. So.
There's a really cool book called Zen and the Art of Creativity by a guy named John Daido-Lori. And it's an amazing book that I think everyone should get. But it talks a lot about the intersection between Zen practice and arts and Bodhisattva vows. And I've noticed for myself, whenever if I feel anxious or just like kind of pissed off for whatever reason, creating is a form of like medicine. And and even going back to stuff that I've created in the past also is a form of medicine for me. And sometimes it might be medicine for other people. And it's funny how anytime that humanity is in some kind of crisis, we tend to turn to art as a form of like healing, whether it's music, dance, writing. So your talk was really cool, and I think it sparked a lot of ideas for me, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks, Melanie, and also to follow up on what Roshi Robert was saying too. When in this past winter semester, I was teaching a class that was about storytelling, and it was really an illustration for me of something that you see in children, which is that they very easily create art and they don't have much baggage about it, right? And so sort of connecting that with Buddha nature and our fundamental nature as seen in Buddhism, I think there's a connect. I think we're all naturally creative, and we have a Buddha nature as well. And so, I think that a lot of our skills are about peeling back the layers of our culture that have covered up these aspects. And so I think that's a very different way to look at skills, not as, there's skills, of course, that build upon, what we're capable of doing, but there's also skills of like being able to unearth and peel back some of the layers that have accumulated over time.
Yeah, resonating with what you just said, Erica, because I think there are many kinds of skill sets, right? And what's wonderful is to hear the way people are talking about them, the kind of the natural proclivities and things that interest you in life become your skill sets. It could be cooking, it could be anything ordinary. It doesn't have to be a big deal. But we're also, this notion of also practice relating to the larger we find ourselves in, and that's a difficult thing to deal with, and I think everyone is dealing with it on some level because the polycrisis affects us in every aspect of our lives, in schools, in healthcare. And so what are the skill sets for this time that can help us manage or work with something that is so large that it feels completely overwhelming, and it's hard to find any agency for what I could do regarding global warming. So then I think there are new upayas being developed, one which I'm studying with Nora Basin, which she calls warm data labs, which is bringing people together to tell stories, but not with any agenda of an outcome. So when we think about the crisis that we're facing right now, it tends to be an epistemological crisis. And then there's an urgency about that, and then we feel like we need to find something to fix it. and we reach for a linear solution, something that will engineer it, that's not going to fix it because the planet is complex. It's not a linear. So how do we work with complexity? And I'm still learning about this, but what I'm learning from Nora Bateson, who's the daughter of Gregory Bateson, who has a pretty rigorous epistemology in terms of science and biology, is that we don't necessarily have to have the solution, but we have to have a way forward where we realize that this is, like there's I'm sorry I'm going on, but there's a Kyle White I think is a Potawatomi indigenous teacher at the University of Michigan. He talks about kinship epistemology. So from an indigenous point of view, the global crisis, it's been here for a long time, from their point of view, for decades. And it's how it affects our communities, it's how it affects our families, and how it affects child raising, relationships. So then to me, it sounds so ordinary, and yet I think it's quite profound that we develop upayas that connect us and allow us to grow sanghas or communities in our local at a scale that we can manage, that are about relationships. And so Nora calls these labs warm data labs because she's trying to get the sense that data is not a number. It's not an abstraction like we think of information. In fact, Gregory Bateson said information is the difference that makes a difference. Well, where's the difference? You can't locate it. It's mindfulness, it's Dharma, and it's relationship. And there are no heroes in an ecosystem. There are no individual, everything is working together. And so I think we're also moving into a time that's moving away from looking for heroes to solve the problem, and realizing that we're going to have to work together, and we're going to have to learn how to collaborate and develop skillful means for doing that allow us to build stronger families and communities that are going to be able to weather what we're going to be going through, which is a pretty dark time, I think. Sorry I talked so long.
Over here.
Well, a little hard to share this now, given what Roshi just said, because I love the whole idea of community and kinship, and it's so important. But earlier, I was thinking about creativity and spirituality, and when I'm writing is the form that's one of the most prevalent for me with creativity. And when I'm writing, it feels very spiritual. You know, it's this experience of creating something out of nothing. And I'm in a different space when I'm writing. And the other thing is, for many, many, many years of my life, I've worked very closely with people. And when something opens in the space we're in together, and there's a noticeable transformation, it's very spiritual to me, it's very sacred.
Oh, sure. Daigu?
To build on a point that Baizan made, probably one of the inflection points in my path has been when I read John Dido Laurie's book, and he told a story. And by the way, John Dido Laurie, I believe, was one of Robert Roshi's Dharma brothers at ZCLA. But he told a story about going out and sitting, trying to do a landscape photo. He was in to be blunt, a shitty mood, as he said. And he took this beautiful picture that he thought was just beautiful and thought he could separate himself out from the beauty. And he had a few people that he shared photographs with. And one of the women took one look at the photo and broke down crying. The sadness and disturbance that John Dido Lurie was feeling came through his work. And for me, that was transformational because not only do I have the lowest form of art, but sales is probably considered the lowest form of commerce. And I'm okay with that. But one of the things that has been very different about me is looking up at everybody else and going, yeah, you guys know. But the idea here is I have been able, and again, I just turned 62, and I'm definitely on the back nine of my career. And I've lost a mile or two on my fastball, right? But what I found is that getting the mindset of collaboration, gentle humor, helpfulness, context, and patience, none of the things that I considered skill sets growing up when I thought I was all that in a bag of chips, okay? It has allowed me to transform the work that I'm doing, and I have two very distinct, different clients, but I have been able to create basically the identical role of being more of the elder statesman than the ego-driven person. And that has been so incredibly rewarding. So it's a function of taking what you find in your art, but also your intention. And if you're attuned to your own intention, which happens through sitting practice, you can then reapply. My humor is no longer used sarcastically or to get a laugh at someone's expense. It's to help deliver a truth that is going to help the person that I'm speaking with. And that's just my choice. And that's how I choose to fulfill my Bodhisattva vow.
Anyone online? Online Sangha? Daigu's asking me to drop the mic after his wonderful statement there. I don't know if anyone online agrees or disagrees. Anyone else, other comments? We still have maybe 15 minutes or so, or we can wrap it up if we've said all we need to say here, Martina.
Thank you. Thank you for your talk. And what kind of came about for me was actually when you were speaking about creativity and writing and all the arts and children, as I have a hard time myself, like doing the writing. I try to have a writing practice, but somehow, I don't know, it just doesn't work out. But when I'm writing, in a sense, in imagination with my son and playing with him, and we're making up scenarios and we're collaborating, this is like, I never thought of it as that, but now I'm thinking that is maybe my form of creativity and art, creating and being in this different world and connecting. And yeah, so thank you for that perspective, because I thought that was like, when you were talking about separation, it's almost like you have to be the parent, you have to like be the worker, creativity is only in certain spots, but here you have to enforce the rule. But actually, like in a play, it's something you can bring all of that together, and you can have learning, you can have fun, you can have creativity, imagination, everything. And it doesn't have to be a true story that you have to assert with facts that, yeah, this happened. You can just let go. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to add to the conversation?
Well, I liked going on the idea of practicing the arts as being selfish. I actually have been thinking a little bit about that because of I had a thought the other night about AI and AI generated art versus human generated art, and like, well, what's the difference? What's the point? And it always comes back to, well, we're social beings, and the human generated art impacts people in very different ways that we don't know necessarily when we create the art, or that different people don't realize. So I guess it comes down to a human generated art can make other people feel seen, basically. And so, you create something, you tell a story that resonates with somebody in a way that you maybe never even intended or never realized would. And I think that's really the purpose of it, regardless of whether it's a monetarily good idea or not. So.
So then the practice of art becomes a direct expression or a direct embodiment of the Bodhisattva vows, as everyone has been talking about right now. All the ways it's bearing witness, and all the ways it's listening to people, because you can't do art, I don't think, without listening to what the world is telling you. And then you're taking direct loving action by carrying it out and putting it out there. And so this was a wonderful conversation.
Anyone else? Over here, Roshi.
One last thing about upayas in the Buddhist tradition, that upaya could have a good outcome, and you might, but I think in general, when we're practicing some skill set, it's not necessarily with an idea about what the outcome is going to be. It's more like you're bearing witness and you're just showing up. And in that situation, maybe you plant a seed, but you don't really know that you planted the seed, and it doesn't really matter. In fact, the more we're attached to the outcome, the less skillful our upaya might be.
Julie. Chisho.
Yeah, I think that doing art is definitely not selfish, because it shows your soul, and it's like shows the meat of really being human. And to me, that's really inspiring, and it's inspiring to other people. When I see somebody else doing art, I get inspired.
Anyone? Online, last call.
Thank you for the wonderful conversation.
Thank you. Please join us for Kinship Hour in the community room. Robin and Earl have brought snacks. We have fruit and fiesta wonderfulness. We also have, thank you to Sam, our first plant swap. So we do have some plants in the community room that you can peruse and feel free to share. Thank you, everyone online. Please have a most beautiful Sunday. Thank you for being here.